So what's going on guys, Kate is here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best Soulfist PVE build in Lost Ark. So in this guide I will show you what abilities and awakening skill you want to get. Then I will explain what are the best engravings, gems and cards to use for endgame content. And then lastly I will show you the best gameplay and even which stats you need to allocate for PvE, so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So no matter how low or high level or gear score your character is, you can easily use this build and follow the step-by-step guide. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So the Soulfist is a very good and fun class with good mobility, high single target and AoE damage. This combination makes the leveling and PvE experience very smooth and enjoyable. This class has World Decimation ability available to them, which is the highest single target damage skill in the game. She raises both hands in the air collecting energy, which then forms into a huge dense energy orb that deals massive amounts of damage. So then for our endgame build we will be using the energy overflow engraving, which with our very high swiftness stat will make our Soulfist a skill spamming machine. Because of our ability selection you'll be able to perform fast paced melee and powerful ranged attacks, which will make the gameplay very fun and give you the highest damage possible and much more. So if you're looking for the best leveling, raiding, chaos dungeon or any other PvE content build, then this is the one for you. Okay, so now let's move over to the build itself, and these are the skills you want to have. So for the first ability we have the Heavenly Squash, and we use this time just 7 levels to unlock the Hard Hitter and Harsh Chaining. Then for your gems you want to get both types, so one for cooldown reduction and the second one for damage increase. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Conviction. Then for the second ability we have the Tempest Blast, and we use 7 more levels to select the Charge Enhancement and Eradication. Then for your gems you want to get both types, so one for cooldown reduction and the second one for damage increase. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Gale Wind. Then for the next one we have the Shadow Breaker skill, and we use 10 levels to select the Predator, Weak Point Detection and Sixth Sense. Then for your gems you want to get both types, so one for cooldown reduction and the other one for damage increase. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Overwhelm. Then for the fourth ability we have the Merciless Pummel, and we use 10 more levels to select the Hard Hitter, Cold Hearted and Double Up. Then for your gems you want to get both types, so the cooldown reduction and damage increase gems. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Gale Wind. Then for the next one we have the Bolting Crash ability, and this time we use just 7 levels to unlock the Volant and Fighting Spirit enhancement. Then for your gems you don't want to select anything. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Bleed. So then for the next ability we have the Force Orb, and we use 7 more levels to select the Quick Preparation and Powerful Wave. Then for your gems you want to get both types, so one for cooldown reduction and the second one for damage increase. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Judgment. So then for one of the last abilities we have the Flash Step, and we use 7 levels to unlock the Instant Preparation and Victory Shout. Then for your gems you don't want to select anything. And then lastly for your rune you want to get the Quick Recharge. And then for the last and final ability we have the Energy Release, and we use our last 10 levels to select the Quick Preparation, Tenacity and Ready Attack. Then for your gems you want to get cooldown reduction gem, and then lastly for your rune you want to get the Gale Wind. Then as well after level 50 for your awakening skill you want to get the Annihilating Ray. But if you haven't reached level 50 yet, then here's a specific guide on which abilities you should upgrade first while leveling with the Soulfist. And then on top of all this, focus on equipping as high item level gear as you can. And then at the end game you should have 350 crit and 1250 swiftness. But again, if you haven't reached this point yet, then try to have around 80% stats into swiftness and 20% stats into crit. Okay, so then the way I would recommend to upgrade this build is at level 50, you will get around 250 points. So here's how your build should look like. But then by doing more and more endgame content you will get more points. And at the absolute endgame, this is how your build should look like with all the 370 skill points. So at the start you use the 244 point build. And then by leveling up and completing quests, you will get more points. So just keep on improving your skills and getting higher tier runes and gems as well. So then let's move over to the engravings, and you want to get the Energy Overflow. This is your class engraving that increases your damage when your energy is below 30%. and your energy won't ever get below 1. And because we will be doing crazy damage and spamming our skills, this engraving will increase our damage by a lot. So then the second engraving is called the Adrenaline, and this engraving provides a additional source of crit and attack power. This is a really good engraving because we have low cooldowns, so you can easily upkeep the stacks. Then the next one is called the Raid Captain, and this is another great DPS engraving that scales off your speed that you get from swiftness. Then for the fourth engraving, you want to get the Precise Dagger, and this is a decent engraving that increases your crit, but if you want, you can switch this engraving with the Keen Blunt Weapon as well. Then the next one is called the Grudge, and this is more advanced engraving that is recommended for tier 3 content. This Grudge is the most efficient engraving against mobs, and you will get your damage increased, but in return you will take 20% more damage. So when you get to the very endgame content, which is called tier 3, then get this engraving, and before using it, get it to at least level 2, because at level 1 this engraving is not that efficient. And then for the last one, we have the Cursed Doll, and this is a significant attack power increase at the cost of 25% healing penalty. This penalty can be offset by paying more attention on dodging red AoE circles and by using healing potions more often. So then in my summary, I would recommend to get the top 3 engravings first and then the bottom 3. And then last but not the least, let's move over to your cards, and you want to get the Armen, Syria, Solus, King Tyrann, Carmen, and Delane Armen. In general, these cards are an endgame system for maximizing your character, so you don't have to get them right away, but these specific cards will optimize your damage output in PvE even more. I did bunch of testing for this build and this was the best and most optimized card set. Okay, so then moving over to the gameplay, and if you have played this class while leveling, you will be very familiar with the skills, so I will just try to give you a short description. So then for the first ability we have the Energy Release, and this skill is a self buff that will increase your attack power by about 40%. And will give you a better survivability for the entire party as well. Then the second ability is called the Merciless Pummel, and this is one of the strongest normal skills in the Soulfist arsenal that hits multiple times and deals massive amounts of damage. Then the next ability is called the Shadow Breaker, and this is a quick skill with the highest part break / weak point and stagger damage, so I would recommend to save it for the endgame dungeon mechanics. Then the next 3 abilities are called the Force Orb, Tempest Blast, and Heavenly Squash, and these are your main damage skills. Then for one of the last abilities we have the Flash Step, and this skill can be used to either way buff yourself for 10% increased attack power or as a mobility skill. And then for the last ability we have the Bolting Crash, and this skill has low cooldowns that leads to a high uptime of your team buffs. And then lastly our Awakening skill is called the Annihilating Ray, and this ability makes your character raise both hands in the air collecting energy, which then forms into a huge dense energy ball that deals massive amounts of damage. And as this is the highest damage awakening skill in the game, so I usually only use it on endgame bosses or elite mobs. Okay, so then let's take a closer look at your best skill rotation, and as we are using the Energy Overflow engraving, our build's playstyle revolves around using our highest damage skills while effectively activating our attack power buffs. So the best damage rotation is to first of all use Flash Step skill 3 times, then once your energy is low use the Bolting Crash, Energy Release, Merciless Pummel, Force Orb, Heavenly Squash, and then finish it off with the Tempest Blast. So let's see what we did in this rotation. But first of all, using the Flash Step multiple times, we will get a quick attack power buff, and mostly it will help to spend our energy. So then when our energy is actually low, our engraving will activate and give us plus 15% damage increase. So then we use Bolting Crash that give us plus 6% attack power buff. Then we use the Energy Release for plus 40% attack power buff. And then from here we are using highest damage skills, and that's about it. The Soulfist class has different attack power buffs for herself and her teammates, but only the highest self and party buffs are applied to your skills at any given time. So basically your self buffs don't stack, so you want to rotate between them like I showed you in the rotation. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. Remember that this class needs high swiftness to do very high damage, so keep on using your energy meter so it would be below 30% as much as possible. Then as well, don't be afraid to keep spamming your skills and don't worry about the hype management, because this build is made around for this type of playstyle. Then for your attack power buffs, don't forget to use them wisely as not all of them stack. And then lastly, you want to transition to level 3 hype before using your awakening skill. Besides from that, stay on level 1 hype and let the buff run out. The reason for avoiding the level 3 hype is once it runs out, you have to wait a very long time before using the hype again, because we don't have much specialization in our build, and that's about it. So I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other good Lost Ark PvE classes that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe, and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.
Yo, I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true.